Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 108. This issue was all about the Vessel and Zordon. Not a lot happened plot-wise to move the plot forward in this issue, but it was a very character-driven introspective issue for both Zordon and the Vessel, and I liked that a ton. So you get a little bit of backstory of what you could basically infer about what happened with the Vessel. As Rita explains, when I trapped Zordon in the cage with Michael and Lucifer, it was just his mind and his soul that's trapped in the time warp, and his body is still there, just a soulless husk. All kinds of supernatural references. It's like Soulless Sam, but not as cool. And how they explain that, and then I think she puts a little bit of a spell on him. She puts a spell on him, and now she's his. Hocus pocus. Anyway, so it explains that. It's kind of stuff we can infer. Once we found out who he was, it just kind of physically shows us that. And then obviously with the name The Vessel, the intent is that he's going to become the vessel for Dark Spectre, which I'll get to at the end. I'll talk a little bit about the potential of that. But basically then, for the bulk of the issue, and the skull of it, you have him breaking into the command center. Of course, because he's Zordon, he can get in. It's like, oh, welcome home, Zordon. Welcome, Professor. I don't know, I'm thinking about when X2, when they let in, tricked the machine into thinking it was the Professor. Anyway, just references are flying through my head today. So, he knocks out Rocky and Adam right quick, and then he touches Zordon's tube. I feel like there's a Zordon playing with himself joke somewhere. I'll resist it. Anyway, so then they go into this mind palace where they talk, where the Vessel basically shows Zordon all his regrets and failures and basically says, look at all you've done, all the mistakes you've made, and for what? You could have had it all, you could have made better choices, and he shows him stuff like the 1969 Suicide Squad mmpr team and the failure there leading to the deaths of 80% of the team. He shows them the guilt over not taking out Rita, sort of bringing in the whole, should Batman kill the Joker type of dilemma. And the fact that he's not going to be able to join with the grid after all this. And the Vessel's like, all this for what? You could have solved this thing with Rita, you could have had it all. And if we remerge, you can have a second chance. But then Zordon's like, no, because obviously you're infected by Rita and I would just become infected by that. That's not the right path. Despite all of the darkness and all the mistakes, there's always hope. And there was something that was confusing to me, at the very end, where it seemed like the Vessel forcibly absorbed Zordon and then came out of the tube, but then that doesn't seem like it's what happened. It was just kind of, the visual language was confusing, because it looked like he absorbed him, and then he was struggling, and it seemed like he was inside of him, and then when he left, Zordon was still in the tube and the Vessel wasn't. But that was when Zordon was like, no, I'm never going to give up hope, and then that shows kind of the counter of, Zordon's regrets of all the things that Zordon values now, which was kind of funny because, he talks about, these people are important to me, and it just shows the Season 1 Rangers, at least I think, if I remember right, it was, which is just funny because Zordon's also a Season 1 stan, but also, I just feel bad, I always bring this up in almost every comic review, even when I'm reviewing one that has nothing to do with it, that Rocky, Adam, and Aisha don't get as much character attention in the comics. But I think that it's funny because I always bring that up, and then in this one, he doesn't even care to bring them up in his mind palace. But a nice little touch there when he's going over, the things that he's done better. It shows, his, regrets about Billy, but his relationship with Billy being repaired. And also when he talks about redemption, it shows grace. I think, obviously showcasing that their relationship has been repaired a lot recently. And I really liked that. And like I said, this issue didn't, necessarily move the plot forward a lot. But I really like that they took time to do this character moment, both for Zordon and the Vessel. Can't state how much I really like what they've done with Zordon in these last couple of runs. In general, all the comics characters, except for the ones they aren't giving attention, are better versions than the show. But Zordon kind of was the worst qualities of Zordon that I didn't like from the show for the longest time. And then they really took a kind of a hard look at Zordon, or had Zordon take a hard look at himself in the Altarian War arc, which I think was one of my favorite things about that arc, where it really showed him overcome his stubbornness and find a balance, and it made me really appreciate the Zordon character a lot more. I actually really quite like him now, and this issue really highlighted that they've really turned a corner with him, where they've acknowledged his flaws and see him getting better, him repairing his relationship with Billy after their disagreement, repairing his relationship with Grace. I still think there was some missed opportunity for some friction with them, with, her having the Green Ranger and him having his Rangers and kind of a philosophy of war, but still, I really like what they've done with him. I think this really showed a great deal of his journey. Also, something I've been praising this run for is they've really taken advantage of I'm not saying every single story, but God, they've really dipped into so many stories the comics have done so far, and I loved like this bringing up stuff like the 1969 story, which I believe was from Go-Go. Like this overall run has used stuff from Go-Go. It's used stuff from deep in the main series. It's used stuff from Power Rangers Universe. I'm sure Beyond the Grid would come in at some point, but they basically take advantage of everything so far, which is really great, especially stuff from Go-Go, that I think is an underrated comic. And that was just cool. I really like that for Zordon, and I like the stuff with the Vessel too. It's an interesting character, because it's like the empty, soulless husk of Zordon who's been given this purpose by Rita, but he doesn't really know who he is. I think he's like searching for answers. Like he's obviously serving Rita, but I think he's very unsure. It's a really interesting place, and I'll be really interested to see where they go with it, because obviously we know in the original timeline, Dark Spectre ends up looking like Malagor, and they've even set him up. They brought him up in that, the Power Rangers universe, or not the universe, the Unlimited one-shot about Astronema and Divatox. I think they brought it, no, it was a Rita one. I think it was a Rita one they brought up when we saw Divatox making a deal. Regardless, they brought it up in the Power Rangers Unlimited series. So I would love to see the comic version of explaining that, like why they look the same. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, we're in a different timeline like 3 times over now. We don't have to follow the show, rules anymore. So I'm curious to see if the Vessel will be possessed by Dark Spectre. Dark Spectre, that's his brother, Dark Spectre. But at the very least, I think it would be cool to see him possessed by him for a little bit. I feel like making the Vessel just the Vessel of Dark Spectre would be a waste of an actually pretty interesting character and villain. So I think it would be cool to see Dark Spectre possess him for a minute and explore that shortly and what he would be like in that body. But then, split off. Maybe the Vessel ultimately rejects him and we lead to Dark Spectre getting a different body. And then we would have the Vessel out there as a different character. I'd be curious to see, are they going to keep him that way forever? Are they eventually going to remerge Zordon? I don't think they always need to bring it back to the status quo of the show/original timeline, because we're way off book now, and let's stay off book. But what did you guys think at our more introspective look at Zordon and the Vessel? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.